Well, hello again, race fans, and welcome. It's the International IndyCar League right here live on VirtualRacing.Network, and we are set for some exciting mental fortitude test here at the legendary Milwaukee Mile in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A famed 1 mile, 1.6 kilometer circuit that is actually the oldest operating motorsports or motor racing facility in the world. So, of course, IndyCar has had so many legendary battles here. Every big name in IndyCar has won here, save for the last several years where the series hasn't been there. But such history here, and who will make their mark today? Well, we'll find out here on VirtualRacing.Network's ongoing coverage of Season 16. It's Race 11 of 12, 190 laps. The Mental Health 190, presented by myself, Trevor Greenfield. Because why not? We can do that. So, the stars and cars of the International IndyCar League now heading out onto the track to get set for qualifying. Let's go ahead and send it down trackside. We'll get cooking with figuring out who's going to get on pole position. Well, it could be this guy right here who's on the center of your screen. This is, of course, Howard Livingston, taking podium position in his last race here on VirtualRacing.Network. And he could do it today. Now, this is a different kind of qualifying format. 3 laps allowed for each one of these drivers. And taking a look right now, just getting up there onto the board, it's Howard Livingston. At the top, Ryan Bowles already putting in his time, now sliding down into third. Mike West now in second place. Jason Lowe in that pink pig. There he is, center of the screen, one of the championship contenders for season 16, excuse me. Will he be able to claw out the championship this season? Well, it's going to be a difficult one for sure, because he's going to have to get by David Strid, who now pokes his nose out onto track. And of course, you can also see, just as we were switching cameras there, Jason Lowe taking the top spot from Mike West. Mauro MJ Ramirez now slotting into third. And, well, let's go ahead and jump on board with Mr. David Strid here, your leader in the points. And now by a sizable margin, he's got to survive 2 more races. But things may be done and dusted before too long after this race. I'm not going to call it official at the end of this race. But he very well, David, may be able to cement this first championship in the International IndyCar League for himself. There he rolls under Barney the Flagman, taking his first lap. Not that fast, only 7th fastest. Brings it down onto that yellow apex there in turn 1 and 2. And this track just so fast, and you blink and you miss a corner. There they are. There he is back out onto the front stretch. Will he go to the top of the charts? He doesn't. He only goes 3rd fastest. How about this guy? Dan Ensch. He says, don't count me out. The ALZ.org machine now sitting at the top of the order, but back over to David Strid, one of the remaining cars. He's about to put in his final lap. And does he take pole position from Dan Ensch? No, he does not, although he does improve on that last lap. So Dominic Harte slotting into second. Here's Jimmy Drennan just now heading out onto the track for his qualifying effort. Get back over to him. Here's Dave Worrell back in the saddle this week. Great to have, we got 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 cars set to grid up here for today's race. And it looks like Jimmy Drennan choosing, he possibly hit the wall. Not seeing a note of that, but he has abandoned that effort that he was on. So we'll watch on with Dave Worrell here, as we now have about, I believe about 40 seconds for him to get in another couple of laps. So his first lap only good enough for the back of the pack, 12th. Comes across that start-finish stripe. And he improves a couple of positions over the top of Christopher Bryan and Rick Lovison. So, kind of a shocker here today as Dan Ensch captures pole position, and it'll go official here in about 5 seconds, but nobody really left besides Jimmy Drennan here. He's just about to come across the finish line, and he cannot get in a fast enough lap to take pole position. So Dan Ensch taking, in the 11th race of the season, taking a shock pole position here. And well, let's go ahead and take a look at the final results. There they are on your screen. Ensch taking first, Harte second, Strid third. So we can go ahead and get the qualifying order up there as these drivers get set for today's action. And we can go ahead and run down the starting order. So starting on pole position will be none other than Dan Ensch, front and center on your screen there. As you can see, out of Indiana, of course, he loves the Milwaukee Mile. It's the famed race that IndyCar used to come to right after the Indy race each season. So here in the International IndyCar League, it's kind of cool that, well, the final race of the season has traditionally been the Indianapolis Motor Speedway race, and that, of course, will be the Care Camps 250, as always. But we'll actually visit the Milwaukee Mile ahead of the Indy race. So kind of keeping with tradition, still in the same sort of ballpark, and cool to keep these two legendary circuits together. Dan Ensch going to be starting on the pole. Outside will be Dominic Harte. As soon as he shows up on the track there he is. He pokes his nose in there. David Strade going to be starting on the second row inside. It's kind of weird to say that because we're so used to him either taking pole or outside pole, but we'll be on the second row. Jason Lowe, and then on the third row, Mike West. MJ Ramirez, although I believe MJ has a end-of-line penalty, so he'll have to start at the back. Howard Livingston going to be starting next to Ryan Bowles. Richard Kelbaugh will be starting next to David Worrell. And then Jimmy Drennan and Christopher Bryan. We will go around just one more time before we get this one kick-started here. And we'll take a look at the last of the grid. So, Rick Lovison will be starting next to Manuel Gomez Esteban. And finally, Iñigo Mardones next to Jesper Van Linden. So great to have you with us here as we get set for an exciting afternoon of action. And of course, main focus today is mental health. The Mental Health 190. We'll be talking much more about that as we get into potential commercial breaks. But Dan Ensch will lead us to the green flag for 190 laps here at the Milwaukee Mile. Barney the Flagman has that flag high in the air. And we are underway here at the virtual Milwaukee Mile on the iRacing service. Dan Ensch already out to a sizable lead there. We watch these drivers now poke their way down the backstretch. It looks like we've got several cars fighting for position here in the middle of the pack. Ryan Bowles in the middle of that. Mike West, Howard Livingston just behind. Howard Livingston side by side, and in front, Ryan Bowles, Jason Lowe side by side. Bowles dives to the inside of Jason Lowe, and we're already under caution. We've had an incident, I believe, a little bit further back there. Mauro Ramirez in his brand new paint scheme. Unfortunately, it is no longer brand new and glistening. And Rick Lovison also being caught up in that. Let's go ahead and just step back for a moment and take a look at what happened. This was Mauro Ramirez, and he just kind of slides out wide there on the start and unfortunately collects another vehicle. I believe that's Jesper Van Linden as well. So MJ, not a great debut for the brand new livery. However, go ahead and use this opportunity to show you the current point standings. As soon as we can get some of this stuff off the screen. And bingo. Okay. Always like 100 things to do. So, indeed, while we are under caution here, let's go ahead and take a look at how they stood coming into this race here today. And we've got Manuel Gomez, Esteban, and Mauro Ramirez still sitting in the pits. Also Rick Lovison and Jasper Van Linden in the pits as well. David Strid atop the season 16 standings, as he has been, and you can just see that clearly 4 wins to his name already, 2 pole positions. Well, he didn't get another one here today, so he didn't get a bonus point for that. And so far, he has not gotten a bonus point for leading a lap. So we'll watch for that. However, Jason Lowe in second place with Graham Bunyan sitting out last race. So still within reach, but Lowe would need to have a couple of spectacular weeks to be able to take over that lead in the championship by the end. So I don't see that happening, but who knows? That's why they go out there and race, right? Dan Ensch, your pole sitter, currently on your screen right now with the End ALZ Last Lap Motorsports car. Currently in 4th place in that championship, 293 points, just 1 point ahead of Dominic Harte. And so that bonus point for getting pole position and possibly getting the most led laps here today, that could be a determining factor for him in this championship, and whether he takes 4th or 5th or 3rd or whatever. So you can see the rest of the drivers there. Rick Lovison actually up in that championship fight, and so it's too bad that he had that incident with MJ Ramirez. However, MJ will, of course, be not so lenient on himself, I'm sure, because he is also the chief steward of the league. And I believe there was another announcement today, but if not, I will save it for next week. But of course, MJ taking on more responsibility here in the league. And like I said, we'll get back to that next week. However, we are about ready to come back to green here. And we've got Dominic Harte sitting second place in that red and white car. But it's Dan Ensch who leads us back to the green flag. And there you can see it looks like Jason Lowe already making his move around the outside of Dominic Harte, taking that position there, sliding up into second place. So great pass by Jason Lowe to get this one rolling and to try to get some of those bonus points. Now, we've already talked so much to Jason Lowe about how he views this. And there you see Ryan Bowles diving the inside of Dominic Harte as well. So Bowles now making it work on the low side. Lowe was able to get it done on the high side on Harte, so Harte perhaps deciding he wants to play it safe. Now, we do have some good race notes here today, provided, of course, as always, by Mr. Dan Ensch, your pole sitter and current leader, who has started to walk off into the distance there. We'll see whether or not he can score another win here in the league today. But Dan letting us know that it's 48 to 55 laps we can expect these cars to go under green flags. Plenty of room for fuel strategies. Very stable setup that he felt by David Strid. Of course, never mean to count out David Strid and all of his contribution towards the setups each and every week. And the main thing is he doesn't expect a lot of mayhem or chaos, because David Strid is bringing mental well-being to all of these drivers by developing a very stable setup that everybody can sort of work with and count on. There you see also Mike West, Howard Livingston getting very close together in the back of that picture. And he does want to mention that pit exit will require some definite patience, and you can certainly understand why. There you can see Howard Livingston did get by Mike West for that 5th position. Howard in that beautiful Care Camps machine, always bringing awareness of care camps and what they do for kids that are suffering, and certainly doing some fantastic raising of awareness. We'll be able to talk so much more about care camps next week. This week, of course, the Mental Health 190 presented by myself, and you're probably wondering, what wacky thing is Trevor going to be doing this week? Well, it's actually pretty simple, but we'll get to that on the next commercial break. in the meantime, we are already 11 laps of the way done with this one. Just about to be 12 laps done. There we go. And then Ensch already out to almost a second lead, but Jason Lowe has come on strong here. This is looking like maybe this might be a day for Jason Lowe. It, of course, does really depend on whether or not he can hold that car on the track and survive the whole race here today. There you can see on the right-hand side of your screen a little bit of the weather data for today's race. 90 degrees on the track, so that's not going to be too bad. We've certainly seen much hotter. And, sorry, I took it away too quick there. There it is back. You see a 12-mile-an-hour breeze. That might matter a little bit more at a bigger track, but here today, it's not such a big deal. But you can see Jason Lowe there trying to track down Dan Ensch. Lowe, of course, racing for Rescue Ranch. We talked about earlier this season out of St. Augustine, Florida. And by the way, he and TM Lowe, our sponsor of last week's Horseplay Therapy race, they're doing just fine. They made it through Hurricane Nicole and marked themselves safe. And in fact, Tiffany out at the Florida Gators game last night. I guess they won. So she's happy, and as you know, happy wife, happy life. So just something to keep in mind. Ryan Bowles there riding along in third place. Hey, Bowles has gotten 5 positions already. He is certainly the hard charger at the moment. And here at the Milwaukee Mile, it's all about a game of inches. Just got to keep clawing at it, lap after lap, and really, as we ride on board here with Bowles, it's really all about that mental toughness, that ability to keep yourself in the game, keep in that zone. Bowles a winner and frequently a front runner here in the International IndyCar League, and certainly somebody that you would have to circle and say this guy could win any race that he is running in. So Bowles now sets his sights on that rear wing of Jason Lowe. We've got another race happening here a little bit further back. This is Jimmy Drennan there in the black car in the middle of your screen, sandwiched between Howard Livingston and it's Dominic Harte in the Scott McLaughlin paint scheme there. And just as I say that, there goes David Strid marching on by Dominic Harte. So he'll take that position up into 6th. Strid lost 3 spots on that start, and I'm not really sure what we can see. I don't see that he came into the pit lane, so I'm not really sure what happened. Oh, I take it back. David did make a pit stop, so he tried to put himself on an alternate strategy to Dan Ensch, who's out front right now and running just about as hard as he can. And this kind of is something that we don't normally see out of Dan, to be quite honest. Usually, Dan is the guy who's sitting in the back, or he's sitting in the middle of the pack just trying to save fuel and try and squeeze out a few more laps than his competition, play the long game. But here he is out front, just kind of running the show and putting down some pretty darn good laps last time by, 22:81. In fact, one of the, it keeps changing so quickly, of course, 22:72 that time by, one of the very fastest cars out there on the track at the moment. Now there are some pretty fast other cars out here. Here's Iñigo Mardones, who also had a pole position very recently, racing with the Necki Racing team out of Barcelona, Spain. And Iñigo turning fast laps, last time 22:52. There you can see just in front, David Worrell Dave in the cave as he's known, making his pass down to the inside of Dominic Harte. Now, Dominic is really struggling here. I don't know if he's just on a super fuel save strategy or what's happening with him, but it is actually becoming a thing for him. He's starting to slide backwards. Now, let's go ahead and take a look back here just one moment ago. This was just a second ago. Ryan Bowles making the pass on Jason Lowe. Senses that Lowe goes to the inside. There goes Bowles by on the outside. And that back straightaway. So back into this, or up into the second place for Ryan Bowles. So Bowles, once again, looking terrific here today, possibly looking at a podium position or more. And just like that, we are now coming up on, this is lap 28, and this race is already flying by. Very quickly, the laps are ticking off, and so certainly these drivers are going to be aware of that and be sort of mentally calculating just how fast this race is proceeding, because again, it's 190 laps, but if you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, this is about 30 laps done, and me mentally as a racer, I'm saying, okay, so we're like, you know, maybe a sixth of the way, seventh of the way through the race already. So, you know, this is really, this tells you a lot when you get into these races that do go for quite a while on green flag strategy. And you can see Ryan Bowles now right up on the backside of Dan Ensch. This battle now starting to really heat up between these two. Bowles now trying to close in and take that position and try and get that bonus point for leading a lap and potentially so much more. Jump on board with Bowles. He makes the move down to the inside. Can he pull it off? I don't know. Dan Ensch hangs it on the outside, and Ensch manages to hang on. Look back from Ensch as he heads down into turn one. Bowles not quite with the run that he had the last lap to make that move down to the inside. Bowles tried to make it stick, but was unable to. Now he's got a very good run on the front stretch, and here goes Bowles down to the inside. This time he gets it done. Move him up into the lead. Ryan Bowles, your new leader here at the Milwaukee Mile for the Mental Health 190. And really, if I have to draw a comparison, actually, let me take a look a little bit further back. This race is starting to tighten up a bit. Here comes Howard Livingston up onto the back of Jason Lowe. Lowe now closing in on the back of Dan Ensch. Bowles off the front a little bit, but you can see Jimmy Drennan in the black car and David Strid in that medium blue Ganassi vehicle just behind. David Strid, of course, your points leader, as we just talked about. They're in that 48 machine, very familiar Jimmy Johnson machine. So we're going to start to see some of this shake loose, but once again, this is it's an appropriate time to talk about mental health because this is all about playing this chess game, this strategy game out here, and some do quite well. Some are very capable of thinking long-term, big picture, long-term, being able to get in that zone and just settle in and handle some of the chaos that might get dealt around you from a calm, cool, collective space. And there you can see Dan Ensch now under attack by Jason Lowe. And again, this is what I'm saying, is just keeping your head down, staying in the fight. Here comes Jason Lowe in that Pink Pig Kirby machine down to the inside of Dan Ensch. And it looks like Dan's going to get freight trained here as Howard Livingston now makes the pass. Jimmy Drennan makes the pass, and David Strid now starts to try to take down to the low side as well. So Ensch goes from first all the way back to sixth place in the span of just about 5 to 10 laps there. So unfortunate for him. However, we continue to watch on Your new top three: Ryan Bowles, Jason Lowe, Howard Livingston, now working on lap number 39 of 190. And that's just how quick it can change. Very much like real life, it can just change just like that. You think everything is going great, you're in control, you're walking away with the lead, and unfortunately get dealt a bad hand of cards, and it's kind of just down to how you deal with it, really. We certainly saw the champ Graham Bunyan deal with many adversities and have to come back through the field. We saw David Strid do that this season a couple of times, have to work his way back through the field, and perhaps we'll see that again here today. But Jason Lowe also taking 2 positions, putting himself in position to take a podium and possibly gain some points on his rival David Strid. And so it's all about that resiliency. But mental health is not something that is exclusively your responsibility. And certainly if you're out there and not really feeling well with the state of the world and the state of things, you are not alone. It's a very difficult time right now. A lot of things going on, certainly in the United States, but elsewhere in the world as well. So much going on, from tragedies to hurricanes in Florida to political things that are happening, no matter which side or whether you're neutral or independent, it doesn't make any difference. So much going on, very tumultuous time, and can be very difficult to have that peace of mind and that calmness in your life. And really, that's what mental health is all about, is being able to live and enjoy your life and not feel all of those stresses too much. And speaking of which, looks like David Strid's starting to feel pretty well out there. He's now just only 1 position short of where he qualified. So now back up into that 4th spot after making that pass around Howard Livingston. Take a look a little bit further back. There's Dave Worrell. Dave in the cave having a good run here. Up 3 spots from where he qualified. Running that Sealmaster Sports Clips. I think it's Ferrucci who was driving it, and others have driven that car, but it's always going to be special to me and Sebastian Bourdais. For those of you that recall, I want to say it was like 2005, but Sebastian Bourdais put on an absolute clinic at this track one year. I think he had everyone down by a whole lap or maybe even 2. So if you ever want to go back and re-watch something that was a pretty astounding Milwaukee race, that is one to go back and see, because I have literally never seen anybody quite dominate an oval like that. But Sebastian Bourdais, one of those drivers that for so many years, absolutely dominant in the Champ Car World Series. A huge part of the IndyCar League, IndyCar Series, when he came over and taking victories, etc., and then really doing a lot for the Dale Coyne team to keep them fresh and alive and in the picture and competitive, and bringing over his old engineer, Craig Hampson, who I think is now with McLaren. So tough to keep track of where everybody moves over 10, 20 years, but still, it all comes back to his dominance, and 1 year being able to absolutely just flatten the field. And it kind of looks like Ryan Bowles is starting to do the same. We got 2.8 seconds on Bowles. Here's Strid, though. Strid into the pits. He did make that pit stop earlier, and so he's actually one of the first ones to come in here. Here's Mr. Stick Quick, Richard Kelbaugh, also into the pits, looking good as always in the Stick Quick bright green machine. Manuel Gomez Esteban also receiving service in his new-ish livery. I'm still so used to seeing him in that bright colored Super Mango livery, but this one looks a little bit more professional. What can I say? Team Mazinger proud of what Manuel Gomez Esteban is doing out here in the International IndyCar League. And you can see race leader Ryan Bowles flying by on the outside. He's not struggling at all today. It's kind of just a little bit of a Sunday drive for Ryan, but he will make his way into the pits here. Let's watch him get down to speed. This is such a tricky pit in. There you go. Down onto that limiter, 45 miles per hour. On iRacing, of course, it's okay to drive through other cars in the pit lane. Not exactly sure 100% why that is still a thing that you can do that, but I would just assume that it's due to wanting to avoid people making contact in pit lane, which could be a real problem for them. Dan Ensch, though, back out into the lead because Dan has not yet made his pit stop, so perhaps that's his secret after all. He not only was he fast, but he was able to churn out a few more laps than anyone else. In fact, that's the case. So here he comes in on lap number 53, really stretching that tank, and good for him, able to use his own mental health and be able to do the calculations and how long he would need to stay out there in order to be able to maximize his number of laps on the track. Now, taking over that lead, Ryan Bowles, Jason Lowe in second, David Strid in third. So you can really see, though, how much this has cost Dan, because Dan is just now underway again, and it looks like he's going to come back out in 6th or 7th. So while he's on that extra fuel strategy, and he could potentially take victory or lead a lap, lead everybody by a whole lap and force them into a lap down position by having to make pit stops earlier than him should a caution come out, which could be quite an interesting end to this race, or caution period. Unfortunately for Dan, he's just going to have to sit back there in 6th and hope that it works out for him. Ryan Bowles, however, Jason Lowe, and now David Strid there. You can see Strid up into that podium position. And now he's going to have to chase down the Pink Pig, the Kirby of Jason Lowe up there in front. And I don't think he has to make that pass in order to take the championship, but he might want to just for fun. Why not? Put it over on your arch rival and show that you mean business. So they're starting to stretch out here a little bit. We'll walk you down through the field. Jimmy Drennan running in 4th place, just ahead of Howard Livingston, who's here on your screen. About 3.6 seconds ahead. Here's about 2.6 seconds back. This is Dan Ensch running in that purple and white and black machine for Last Lap Motorsports. Mike West closing in just about a second back of Dan Ensch. This is in 7th place. David Worrell in 8th place. You can see him charging around in that yellow-black Sealmaster machine. In 8th there. Iñigo Mardones racing for the Necky Racing team, as I've mentioned. Oh, and he gets it loose on the backstretch on cue, and it will bring out a yellow flag. So let's take a look at exactly what happened as we focus the camera on him. Maybe we can get down a little bit closer into the chopper zone. There we go. Okay, so let's take a look. This is from overhead as Mardones heads into, I believe that's turn 2. And he's still sort of in that high line, that middle groove actually. It looks like perhaps David Worrell exiting in front of him and Mardones trying to turn down the track, perhaps to avoid Worrell. Just kind of loops it there, and unfortunately that does bring out the caution. Here's Mardones now live and heading down into the pits. That'll bring out our second caution, and we don't have a video here for you today, but I just wanted a chance to perhaps talk about mental health. And this comes to us I know how you feel about the government, but this is actually a pretty good description, and I felt like this would be appropriate to read today. What is mental health? Well, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. Over the course of every stage, over the course of your life, if you experience mental health problems, your thinking, mood, behavior could be affected. Many factors contribute to mental health problems, including biological factors such as genes or brain chemistry, life experiences such as trauma or abuse, circle that one, family history of mental health problems. Hey, is this starting to kind of sound familiar? Well, that is pretty much everybody. I mean, think about it. Is there anybody who that doesn't apply to? Really, think about it. Early warning signs. Not sure if someone you know is living with mental health problems. Experiencing one or more of the following feelings or behaviors can be an early warning sign of a problem. Eating or sleeping too much or too little, pulling away from people and usual activities, having low or no energy, feeling numb or like nothing matters, having unexplained aches and pains, feeling helpless or hopeless, smoking, drinking, using drugs more than usual. I would say that a lot of us simply use drinking or drugs, my own personal commentary, to escape from life. And if you notice that you're starting to do that at all, or doing that very much, you might consider mental health for sure. Or if you're seeing that in a loved one, feeling unusually confused, forgetful, on edge, angry, upset, worried, or scared. Oh yes, anxiety. This is my own input here. Anxiety, a big factor of mental health for sure. We'll talk about that more. Yelling or fighting with family and friends, experiencing severe mood swings that cause problems in relationships, having persistent thoughts and memories you can't get out of your head, hearing voices or believing things that are not true, thinking of harming yourself or others, inability to perform daily tasks like taking care of your kids or getting to work or school. So what would positive mental health allow us to do? And overall, how does it affect our well-being? Well, it allows us to realize our full potential. And, you know, don't get caught up in potential like with with society's view of what success is supposed to look like. Sometimes potential is just enjoying life and not feeling upset with life. And, that's just the potential for all of us, is to really enjoy our lives. So being able to cope with stresses of life, work productively, make meaningful contributions to our communities. So here's ways to maintain positive health according to the government. You can connect through these. We'll talk more about it on the next break, but getting professional help if you need it. Now that's a big one, if you need it, but I would say don't be afraid to look for professional help. It really can help. As we watch Ryan Bowles here take us back to the green flag, here's just some more ways that you can maintain positive mental health. You can connect with others. Sometimes it's hard though, because sometimes others can honestly be toxic and can be a reason why you have mental health issues in the first place. So I might say finding people who understand you, care about you, and want to support you as a person, that is how you can connect with others. And also, while you're connecting with others, you might start to look at yourself and your boundaries of how you might be able to maintain those relationships with other people. Even if they're toxic, you might have really rigid boundaries with them just to make sure that some of that toxicity does not get through. Of course, you can always cut some of those toxic people out of your life. That's an option. But when you find people who do support you, do want to believe in you, and of course, who do love you, that's a great way for you to communicate and feel loved and accepted, and that really has a positive benefit on your mental well-being. Getting physically active, so important. Helping others through volunteering, etc. You want to be careful not to get too caught up in that, because you can start to believe that your life is like Mother Teresa and you need to give and give and give. We'll watch this battle going on up ahead, though. This three-way battle between Jason Lowe, David Stridden, Jimmy Drennan for second place. Just to finish this list, getting enough sleep and developing coping skills. So we'll talk more, as I mentioned, in the upcoming break about some of the things that I know and can help with. But just looking in over on YouTube, great to have Dominic Harte checking in, saying good luck to all in today's race. And Aussie Racer, that's Graham Bunyan. He's doing radio duties today, coaching and helping probably David Strid to stay in the game up there and stay mentally feeling well. He's checking in. Good luck, everyone, and maybe true. And then Will Stearns, hey, good, careful racing today. And indeed, I think everybody just trying to be careful and keep that mental well-being in check, of course. Ryan Bowles already walking out to another sizable lead, 1.3 seconds gained. But it's this battle that's raging on behind between the pink and blue. It's Lowe on the outside and Strid on the inside. These two are fighting for first in the championship, and I tell you what, Lowe is gonna fight tooth and nail. And Graham Bunyan also checking in, letting us know that he is, in fact, calling the shots there for Strid. So I don't want to interrupt him. He's got some spotter duties to do, but great of him to check in with us via the YouTube chat. If you're out there watching from anywhere, you can join us over in YouTube. And of course, I always invite you to join us live if you can, as we watch this battle rage on between Strid and Lowe. Lowe on the outside, Strid on the inside, and it looks like Jimmy Drennan possibly trying to stick his nose up into that business. So Strid up into the lead. Lowe now in the sights of Drennan just behind, and Howard Livingston, you can see, actually that's Mike West just behind as well. Howard Livingston a little bit further back the track. So Lowe now facing more attacks, this one coming from Jimmy Drennan. And now Mike West and Jimmy Drennan are involved in a battle. That for fourth place. West on the inside, that beautiful red and black machine. And the black trading paints from Jimmy Drennan, I think because he had a paint that we could not show here on the network live. But as we announced our new livery changes, hey Jimmy, if you're listening, just make sure that it fits the rules that we just put out there, and I'll make sure that I get your livery out there on the screen at least next week. But you can also be a rebel and run around in whatever livery you want. Oh, and now we look as Mike West has slipped back and Howard Livingston has gotten in front. So also see that Christopher Bryan passed Richard Kelbaugh for P8, and it looks like Kelbaugh starting to slide back. Here he is. There's Gomez Esteban getting by, Dan Ensch getting by. So Kelbaugh back to 10th. And Harte now on the march. So Dominic Harte, you know, he started way up there in the front, now running way in the back in 11th position. Not where we are used to seeing Dominic at all, but nevertheless, perhaps having a difficult race mentally to get through, but it's all about recovery. Sometimes, you know, sometimes you just got to drop out of things for a bit. And this is a big part of not just maintaining your mental health, but for those of you that are kind of on the spiritual awakening path, so to speak, of which a lot of times when people start to investigate their own issues and go and do some self-introspective meditation and things like that, you start down this path of spirituality, etc. But no matter how you feel about it, sometimes things get to be just too much. It can be too overwhelming. And if life is becoming too overwhelming, it's sometimes you have a lot of responsibilities and you just need to tell your friends and family, hey, look, I just need some time off for a little bit. I need to just kind of, you know, go sit by myself. Just do some self-care. That's really where it's at. Just drop out for a bit. Do some stuff that feels good. If you like walking, hiking, camping, I mean, obviously this time of year in the United States, in the Northern Hemisphere, not the time to go camping, but if you enjoy getting out there, just get out there, do some stuff by yourself, enjoy your life a little bit. When you're at home, take time to make sure you listen to your body, feed yourself well, take nice, relaxing baths, really enjoy soaking up what it feels like to really pay attention to yourself for a little bit. And if you explain that to your loved ones, they will understand. And that's one of the keys. You got to have people that are around you that appreciate you and will support you, and they'll understand if you're going through something and be there to give you a little bit of support. So just a little bit of advice from myself, Trevor Greenfield, as I get into the holistic healing space for the first time in my life, be able to help others to heal. Specifically, my focus will be on trauma and trauma healing. And of course, all of us really facing that. And let's just talk about that from a racing perspective, so I don't have to go too far off topic here. You know, trauma is a real thing. And certainly, you know, in real life, let's say you're Romain Grosjean and you get into a crash and there's fire and your hands are burned, or, you know, shades of Niki Lauda's horrible racing incident back in the 80s, and that fiery crash that burned his face and got into his lungs, and so many months of recovery. And of course, you know, it's easy to look at them on the outside, any of these drivers, and say, oh, they're manly men, they're men's men, you know, they can get through anything, and people are dying and people are used to crashing, etc. But the harsh reality is that whether it's virtual racing or real life racing, I mean, if you're crashing, and if you have bad experiences, I mean, it could really, really hurt. In fact, not to get too public with this, but some of the higher profile people here in this league have simply had bad experiences with one another. And it left such a sour taste in their mouth that they've had to make big changes in their life. And in fact, one of them has decided they're not going to continue to race in this league any longer. And another one is having to step down from a position of power. And others, of course, have taken themselves out of the league. Multiple have taken themselves out of the league over the seasons, just because they disagree with how something was done at the track, and they just have these memories of it. And honestly, that is a sign of trauma. It's a sign of post-traumatic stress disorder, where something has happened in your life, whether it's something that seems as frivolous as sim racing, all the way to, you know, somebody cuts you off on the freeway and you remember that all day long. It sticks with you. This is trauma. And this is stuff that, you know, we want to say, oh, you just fight through it. You fight through it. Well, you don't, because that memory sticks around inside of you. Will Stearns checking in saying sim racing can be very tiring. And that's another part of it. Exhaustion. Just exhaustion, whether you're sim racing or in real life. You got so many responsibilities. And out here on the track, this is why this is perfect here at the Milwaukee Mile to talk about mental health, because I mean, here we are working on lap number 92. These drivers have to go an additional double the distance they've already gone here today. We're 49 minutes into this race session. Actually, I take it back, 40 minutes exactly into this race session. This is going to be 80 minutes plus of racing out here today. That is almost an hour and a half, and depending on the yellows, it may be an hour and a half. It is quite exhausting. And for those of you who have been involved in iRacing official racing, I mean, sometimes there's so many yellow flags and you have to pace around under the yellow flags that, of course, one of the funny nicknames of iRacing is iPacing, because of, certainly in the stock car races where you get 40 cars out there, it's just caution after caution after caution. So take a look a little bit further back here. This is Jimmy Drennan, who's now marched up into that third spot. Just behind, you've got Jason Lowe for the Rescue Ranch. Howard Livingston crossing the stripe not very far behind. And Mike West, David Worrell, Christopher Bryan actually having a very good race in the top 10. Haven't talked about him much, but there he is, picking up 4 spots from where he started. And try to get that paint job back out there again next week. Again, we'll give everybody a shot next week, anybody who's had their paint jobs taken off. But I do believe Bryan, if I recall, didn't actually have a livery on that machine. He just chooses to race with the black paint job. But either way, we'll give everybody a shot again next week for the Care Camps 250. Certainly special race. Great time to get a custom livery done. And speaking of which, is he still out there? Yes, he is. Let's take a look at that new livery. This is a brand new one, just done by one of my great friends in iRacing, Vopsy. You can head over to Vopsy.com, VOPPZY.com. They're very talented, very talented individual, putting together all of the liveries for their team, which... my goodness, I don't even know what to call it anymore. Unfortunately, I've been out of the loop for a little while. But Three Crowns Racing is what it was. Oh, it's Indy Alliance Racing officially now. It was Three Crowns and Indy Alliance, and now they've just joined under the IAR banner. But putting together all those beautiful liveries there, and we got a chance here on VirtualRacing.Network to feature so many of them when we were doing the official fixed iRacing coverage not that long ago. But MJ getting a fantastic paint job done here, and so cool to have MJ really repping the International IndyCar League in a big way, right across the rear engine cowling. So other news, David Strid in the pits. You can see Rick Kelbaugh also making his way into the pits as well. And as these drivers circulate and exit the pits, you see the bumps there exiting the pits. That's a big deal, and it can really shake the car loose. So you really have to make sure your weight jacker is correct and you don't apply too much throttle at the wrong time. We also have Jason Lowe now in the pits, but he spun it. Lowe with another one of those little mistakes getting into the pits. It's okay. He's taken off that front wing. It should be quickly repairable. But any time lost here on pit lane at the Milwaukee Mile under caution, or excuse me, under green flag, is just so difficult to lose that time. He's now all the way back in 10th. And he'll continue to slip back even further. Comes Ryan Bowles. He'll be coming into the pits. We watch him make his way in. Will he spin it? No, he doesn't. So, because we don't really have much else racing action going on here, let's just go ahead and make sure we're on the right replay. And let's take a look as Lowe stepped into the pits. What went wrong? And he had to do a full turnabout. So, jump on board with Lowe. Oh, just kind of a quick entry. And that may actually pose a problem, but maybe not as far as getting a speeding penalty, because he was fast entering, but unless he got assigned a penalty before that moment, it's likely it all averaged out with the way that iRacing does it. So, Jimmy Drennan now pitting from the lead. And that will turn over the lead to David Worrell. Dave in the cave. He's going to get a bonus point for leading a lap. So certainly congratulations to him for getting up there. It's never easy to do, that's for sure. So Worrell there in the lead and continues to do so. I was concerned that maybe he didn't get credit for leading that last lap, and so maybe he wouldn't get a bonus point before pitting, but he's right on board with the new leader. Is he going to bring it into the pits this lap? Yes, he will. Watching from next to his visor here, Looks like a pretty good pit entry. So we switch over to Dan Ensch's machine as he inherits the lead with this round of pit stops. And a reminder, of course, you're watching live here, VirtualRacing.Network's ongoing coverage of Season 16. It's round number 11 of 12 from the Milwaukee Mile, the famed circuit, the Milwaukee Mile. And wow, you can see Worrell getting out on that yellow rumble strip. You don't want to do that. That could spin you right around. But he manages to make it back out of the pits just fine. And Ensch, in the meantime, hoping to trap everybody a lap down at some point here. He's got Dominic Harte just behind, Ryan Bowles, Jimmy Drennan. So actually he won't be in that position to put everybody a lap down, I do not believe. And so Dan and Dominic last coming in on, let's look at their stint lengths so you can see how long Ensch and Harte have been out there. Ensch and Harte came in on 62 and 64 respectively, and we're on lap 111, so they're definitely due here momentarily. Everyone else kind of getting in their stops within the last several laps. You see Mardones also on that same strategy. So he, Mardones up in that 9th position at the moment. So we look for the leaders to come in soon. And in the meantime, 114 laps done here. So we've got about 75 more laps after this one to do. And that means that we'll see another pit cycle or another pit stop before this one is over. So will yellow flags play a role in that? Possibly. But this has been a good one so far. Yellow, only 2 yellows so far. And all these drivers really behaving themselves. And again, welcome to everybody who's joining us here live on VirtualRacing.Network. I'm Trevor Greenfield, and this is my race. No, I sponsored this race for the International IndyCar League. That means that I'm doing this one pro bono. And so it's good that I get to talk about mental health and mental well-being, because that is really my new focus in life. I love it. It's not just mental, but holistic wellness, holistic healing, etc. Dominic Harte now making his pit stop here. And so what is holistic wellness? Well, it includes the mental side, it includes the body, and it includes the spirit, and how they all work together so that you can, I mean, achieve your potential. Sure, I guess that's a word to say, but really it's just so that you can enjoy life and see what life is really truly, what it has in store for you. Because a lot of people, even since birth, if I can just talk about it, I'm just going to talk freely here while we watch this race unfold. I promise I'll keep the cameras interesting, but I mean, since birth, people kind of shut down. They shut down by their parents, told to be a certain way, act a certain way, do something a certain way. Maybe kept, the story I hear over and over and over again is about how people wanted to be creative as kids. They wanted to just go out and play and dress up funny and act weird, and how that did not fit with their very straight-edge parents' view of how they should act. And so perhaps, you know, they wanted to play instruments and they were told, oh no, you can't make a career out of playing instruments. Or I watch sometimes shows on cooking and on the Food Network, etc., and it's very, very interesting how very frequently you hear some of those contestants say that their mother, their father, especially from certain ethnicities, especially for sure, but that their mother and father, they say, no, you have to be an attorney, you have to be a, you know, a doctor. That's the only way. You have to go out there and get a job just like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can be mentally and holistically well doing any job. But if you really wanted to play, you know, the clarinet for a living, or you really wanted to just play the guitar and sing songs, and your parents step in there and say no, or in the case of these others, you know, they wanted to just be a chef. And of course, hey, chefs can go on and have great success. They can make plenty of money. They can run their own restaurants even. They can, you know, become famous chefs and write books and all the rest. So, you know, all those things are valid, and a lot of people get stopped early in life from really achieving what they want to do. I was personally very blessed to have kind of a more neutral standpoint from my family. It was sort of like my mother and my stepfather encouraging me a little bit to get out there and do some of my creativity, but within limits, you know. You can't dress and act certain ways, but you know, you have a little bit of writing and other creative freedom. They pretty much just didn't want to stand in my way at the end, so that wasn't a big issue. My father stepped away for quite a long time in my life, and that's a different type of trauma, sort of abandonment issues, and that has come back to be a factor in my life that I've dealt with. But when he did come back, and for the whole time that he's been in my life, he's encouraged me to do everything, including racing go-karts. He raced Formula Atlantic back in the day. As you see, Ryan Bowles, Jimmy Drennan, David Strid, your top three. Howard Livingston in fourth, David Worrell in fifth. And it's about a second between Bowles and Drennan, so we'll keep an eye on that battle. It's about the closest battle happening on the track at the moment. But yeah, my father used to race in the Formula Atlantic series back in the 70s, just some of the side races. He did get to do Long Beach. He actually won at Westwood, British Columbia one year, which is his biggest claim to fame. And so he got me started in go-kart racing, and he believed in me. He believed in me to make movies and start a film festival and do all kinds of fun stuff. And of course, he loves the fact that I'm able to do this sim racing thing, even if he doesn't really understand it. He always encourages me in that way. But just talking with so many people over the years, and certainly recently as it's become such a focus of mine, I've come to understand how many families were not so supportive and really were saying, you know, our whole family has been police officers, you need to be a police officer, and similar things like that. So just culturing and conditioning from a very early age can really mess up your mental well-being, especially as you try to have relationships and you try to find what your purpose and what you're seeking out of life and what will bring you your enjoyment. So mental health, a huge part of that. But the reason why I don't suggest people just exclusively visit a psychiatrist for their therapy is because it's practically impossible, as I think we just saw Rick Kelbaugh kind of pull off to the side. He's just kind of letting other drivers through here in the background. There's Mr. Stickwick staying aware and staying mentally well and making sure that others' races are not impinged by his own activity. So we always appreciate that gentlemanly aspect. But for those of you who might be struggling with mental health, again, hey, you're not alone. Every single person I think I've ever met has in some way been struggling with their mental health. And that means that that's really the normal. We're all struggling with it, every one of us. So holistically, as I said, you have to look at a number of factors. And if you're surrounded by toxicity in your life, you have unsupportive people around you, you have people that are duplicitous in their activities, they tell you they support you, but their actions are quite different. These are things that you need to really evaluate, and you need to start looking at having some boundaries towards these people or these situations. If you're working in a place that is toxic, overworks you, doesn't care for you, doesn't give you any benefits, these are things you need to evaluate and say, you know, I think I could maybe go work for somebody else. Maybe even have to take a small pay cut. But if it's for your health, then certainly, you know, if you're not feeling mentally well, as we see Jimmy Drennan in second place. He's about 3.34 seconds back from Ryan Bowles, who's out in first. But if you're not in a mental well space, you can't be mentally well for those who are around you either. So for your family, for your kids, for your husband, your wife, whatever, even, you know, your extended family, and even, you know, your involvement here in sim racing. I mean, a lot of times things get heated, and if you're not coming from a mentally well space, I mean, that could be really detrimental to what everyone else experiences. So if you don't have a good race and you're already agitated because you had a bad morning or whatever, or somebody called you dumb, and you go into the race and then somebody says, "Hey, stupid, you know, why'd you make that move on me?" I mean, that could just set you off. And those of you who have experienced that, you know what I'm talking about. That could ruin your whole day, and you could say something that you might regret many times over to these people who are your friends and your family. So mental health is massively important. Now, the other side of it, the holistic side, is really understanding how mental well-being fits into the bigger picture. If you're not getting sleep and you're only, you know, you're facing insomnia, hey, that's something that you need to seek help for. And certainly that can be caused by lots of different stresses in your life. I mean, anything that could be causing you stress, but certainly something that people do neglect a lot. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so involved in holistic wellness, is their diet and nutrition. Diet and nutrition plays a massive role, and so many people, you know, turn on TV and it's a commercial for a triple cheeseburger. You know, the places that advertise things to you, they advertise fried, greasy, fattening foods and heavily drenched in salt and all of these other things. And I have to tell you, after myself losing 35 pounds this year by simply kind of more holistically looking at nutrition, I become so aware of how important the role things like just drinking enough water in your day is. The rule of thumb is you should be drinking of just regular, pure, clear water. You should be drinking half of your body weight in ounces of water. Here comes Jason Lowe down into the pits, and this will probably be his last stop. Indeed it will. 38 laps until the end. Ryan Bowles continuing to lead with Jimmy Drennan in second. David Strid in third. Howard Livingston racing in fourth. David Worrell, Dave in the Cave, holding down the top five here. Mike West in sixth. Dominic Harte running up there in seventh place. So call out a couple of those positions back. Christopher Bryan in eighth. Dan Ensch in ninth. And Jason Lowe is now looking to emerge in 10th. He'll have, eventually he'll have... this is quite interesting. I'm seeing that Jimmy Drennan possibly having a disconnect, which is really sad to hear. So yes, indeed, he's sliding back in the order, and so Jimmy Drennan dropping down and out of the order, unfortunately, due to some sort of a connection issue. So we hope that he can rejoin here momentarily. But that will move Howard Livingston back up into podium position. And wow, Bowles really working on Dominic Harte there, taking every inch that he needs to try to lap Harte. But back to the nutrition side. So you should be drinking half of your body weight in that. But I would encourage people to say, you know, don't necessarily stop there. Just drink water all day long. You know, maybe replace some of the sodas and all of that stuff with it. Because water, I mean, we're made of water. And, you know, the air around us is basically partially water. It's like liquid water. So it's kind of a no-brainer that our body works off of clear, fresh water. And that's the first place I would start. Start drinking lots of water. Now, that's not going to fix everything by itself, but you will notice things that are great. Myself, I noticed clearer skin almost instantly I noticed that the whites of my eyes, suddenly I had much whiter eyes in the whites of my eyes. And as I cut also sodium down to as little as I could possibly get away with, you know, still making sure that you keep things seasoned and tasting good, the bags under my eyes disappeared. Even though I had kind of reduced sleep still, the bags under your eyes just start disappearing. The puffiness goes away from different areas. The swelling, the inflammation in different areas starts going away. And that's just two things that you can do almost instantly. More water and cutting down your sodium. Now, sugar is the third one that I would recommend because, I mean, sugar is just... refined sugar is practically evil. I don't know why they sell it at the store. But of course we love it in our cookies and our cakes and everything else. So, you know, last night I had a couple of cookies. You can have cookies, you can have cakes, cupcakes, whatever. But you really want to limit it because that sugar cannot really be processed by your body and it just turns into fat. And more than that, your body doesn't really get any quality calories, as we see David Stritt pulling down in the pits. And so, you know, sugar, refined sugar especially, fruit sugar is kind of a different deal, the way that it's received by your body. But refined sugar, salt, and drinking more water, and believe me, you will see a difference, and you'll probably start to, if you need to, you'll start to lose weight. There's so much more to it than that, of course, but combining that with excellent sleep and giving yourself that opportunity to have as good a sleep as possible, making sure that you take it seriously. Get yourself a white noise app on your phone. They're free. You can listen to rain on the roof. That's one of my favorite ones, or ocean waves, or just wind noise, just white noise, whatever. You know, try several out. But make sure to get that quality sleep and make sure that everybody around you knows, hey, look, I need to sleep. It's important for my health. Leave me the F alone. You know, keep the dogs and the cats out of the room if you need to, just to give yourself that room to sleep. And here we see Ryan Bowles has had an incident. What has happened to our leader? He's tagged the wall. Oh, it's coming into the pits. This is a replay. Bowles, the same thing that Lowe did, making that tiny mistake. Will that cost him the win? He had been so perfect until that moment. We'll go back to the live picture. Here he is exiting the pits. Oh my goodness me, he slips back. Now he's in fourth place. Fifth place. This will be, he's now virtually fourth on the track because Worrell will have to make his pit stop. This is David Worrell, but that little incident costing Ryan Bowles dramatically here, may cost him the win. But I think as everything clears out with the pit stops that remain, we've got Worrell, Harte, and Ensch still yet to pit. See, they came in on 116, 115, so, and 108. So yes, they all still need to pit. Their big hope would possibly be seeing a yellow flag come out almost immediately. So we take a look back at David Stritt, who will inherit this lead once these other two pit because of Ryan Bowles' incident. But Bowles is only now about 2 seconds back. There he is. And now Worrell is coming into the pits. So we'll get to see this cycle through. But just to finish that point, definitely sleep, and you know how it feels. I mean, sleep resets you. It gives you, when you get 7-8 hours of sleep, I mean, you just wake up with energy. You feel less strain, less stress. You feel more calm. I mean, I got to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do this broadcast out here on the West Coast. And I mean, if I'm feeling like junk, I'm going to sound like junk when I talk on the broadcast, and everybody can hear it. I've done it once. Might have been a little hungover, maybe stayed up a little too late the previous night, and people said, you sounded sick today, Trev. So, and it's funny, right? But it's not when that's like your everyday, and you're only getting 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep because you're all stressed out. You know, this is the time to take it seriously. And when you wake up in the morning, you got the mental health that you feel calm and you feel relaxed. Hey, that's the way to roll. As Ensch now makes his pit stop, Mauro Ramirez in the pits as well, and Harte still staying out there in the lead. 3.6 seconds now between Strid and Bowles. So I think I'll wrap this one up to say that if you're looking for a quick solution for the nutrition side, I cannot recommend enough a book called The Eat Clean Diet by Tosca Reno. And it's called a diet, but really what it is all of the core nutritional things that Tosca, who she went from down to up. She had a little bit of a downtime again, and she's back up again. But basically, she's been a champion bodybuilder, model, and certainly, you know, she's the first one to say, I didn't invent this diet. I didn't invent this. It's basically a lifestyle, a whole lifestyle of cleaning up what you're eating, preferring to eat cleaner, better foods for you nutritionally, and how all of this, along with proper rest and proper exercise, all of this can get you feeling holistically so much better than you do today. And as somebody who earlier this year, I was looking for a solution, and I had done so much research. I had lost 30 pounds previously in my life, but I just didn't have a whole lifestyle to back it up. This Eat Clean diet really changed my life in terms of being able to reboot myself and take advantage. Now, there's a lot of exercise, a lot of going out and walking and hiking, and you know, and a lot of adapting to eating 6 times a day, which is smaller meals instead of jamming yourself over full at each meal and then going through these long periods where you don't get food. It's the complete opposite, where it's the abundance, where you can literally eat 6 times a day. Sometimes you don't even feel like eating, but you have to. So we watch Dominic Harte here continue. He's going to make this final pit stop, and he will give up the lead to David Strid. Now makes his way around, and on lap 167 takes over the lead of the race. Sorry, 166 takes over that lead of the race. Oh no, I guess he is working 167. Excuse me. 24 to go. That's the main thing here for the Mental Health 190 at the famed Milwaukee Mile, presented by Trevor Greenfield. That's me. And you are watching live here on VirtualRacing.Network. And of course, just looking in, Will Stern saying, spent a good portion of his life studying kinesiology and chiropractic, one of his well-hidden hobbies. Amateur kinesiologist, family sure likes it. Yes, I am taking A&K right now, anatomy kinesiology. It is a blast. I am learning so much about the human body, and I look at it completely differently. But kinesiology degree is one of those things that you would need if you wanted to be a physical therapist. And yes, I actually am in school right now for massage therapy at a fantastic school that's locally, and they teach us everything about it. And, you know, very seriously, extremely professional. I mean, very in-depth about learning every single important bone and muscle group in the body, ligaments, nerves, etc. I mean, one of the things that I read just in my textbook was just talking, I mean, it literally, in my textbook of anatomy, it's talking from a scientific point of view that we store trauma in our bodies. Okay? So if you want to know why I'm into massage therapy as well as the rest of holistic wellness, it's because we store trauma in our muscles. We hold them in different areas, joints. We just hold trauma there. We hold pain, we hold suffering from the past, and it can be released through massage therapy. It can be released through Obviously, physical therapy is a big part of it. Getting good exercise, yoga, and stretching, a huge part. You start today just by doing some basic stretching and yoga. Doesn't matter whether you sit down or you're standing or you're laying down, whatever it is, you can do yourself a big favor right there for sure. But certainly seeing a chiropractor, learning more about what's going on with your body, whether you've had some bones that maybe need to be reset, etc., and really looking into that holistic space of healing. So Aussie Racer says, of course, Graham Bunyan saying, one of the biggest reasons to step down from racing, kills me not to be racing, but better for my health to remove myself from the problem, stayed active to help the others. And so basically, Graham kind of telling us all right there that there's just a lot going on in his life, but he works in the healthcare industry, doesn't need to be taking his issues from here to work, doesn't, and that's another term that I learned this year that's fascinating, which is called transference, where you are transferring your energy to those around you. And of course, we're focused on negative issues, but if you look at it like objectively, even positively, we transfer our energy to others, and perhaps they're not in the space to receive it. So that's one of the things that I have said before, is when somebody's suffering, you know, just being a bright, shining light might be the wrong thing. You know, sometimes somebody is suffering and they just want you to be there so that they can tell you their story, or that they can let you know that they are suffering. And they don't need you to say necessarily, hey, just shake it off and have a great day. That's in fact the wrong thing to do to support your loved one. So in a similar way, if you see your loved one and you say, have a great day, well, that may not be the right thing to do. And so look at things like that. Look at how your energy transfers to others when you're in a bad mood, when you're in a good mood. Here's something that's being transferred. Christopher Bryan bringing out our final yellow flag, hopefully, of the day. Let's take a look back here just a moment ago at what took place. Look on as Bryan goes through 1 and 2. And Howard Livingston getting caught in the middle of that. Oh, how unfortunate for Howard. My goodness me. We'll take a look here. This is Howard following Bryan into the corner. He's already committed to the line. He tries to slow, but there's just nowhere to go. Talk about a guy who seems to live the perfect life down in Summerlin Key, his own private paradise, enjoying his life with his family and his dogs, and I guess they're part of the family too, of course, little furry children for sure. But yeah, Howard's got a lot of opportunity to give himself, and has given himself, really all he needs to do to be mentally healthy and well. And of course, talk about fulfilling potential. I mean, Howard's a very successful musician and continues to entertain, you know, thousands down in Florida every single year. Mile Marker 24 band, and of course Howard also independent musician as well. So look him up over at howardlivingston.com. But I mean, that's just kind of where he's at. He's been able to take care of himself. Unfortunately, here's another situation where he was in a podium position. And so mental health, you know, you gonna get upset? You gonna let that ruin your day? I mean, it's not that it doesn't affect you. It certainly does. You're caught in some chaos that randomly happens in front of you. But is that what's important, or is what's important, you know, the rest of your Sunday? You know, and your fantastic family and the things that you already are planning on doing today, and, you know, all the positive experiences that can come out of today. It's part of mental health is being in such a calm space that you're not already agitated. And so I guess this is the last thing I'll talk about mental health for the rest of this race, because we should see a great finish to this one. But one of the things that is very common is high anxiety. You start feeling this electricity as you're feeling stressed with life and your own issues. You feel this electricity flowing through your veins. It's actually your nerves. But there is an actual nervous system in your body that is dedicated towards causing that. And it is called the autonomic nervous system. And part of that is there's two sides. There's the, well, I don't have time to get into that, unfortunately. It's a little bit longer of a story. But one is for the fight, flight, flee side of life, where you're scared and you're put into it and you are feeling like, you know, stressing and all of that. It puts you into that. It's the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic is the other side. It's called the rest and relaxation side. That's the side that Howard Livingston's operating out of daily. I guarantee you, he's in a good place. But when we're stressed out, it activates that survival mode, and there's so much more to it than that. So for those of you that want to learn more, or if you want to be part of the first group that works with me, send me a message, let me know, and I'll start listening, and we'll start talking, and we can start to develop some different plans and different things that you can do to make your life better. In the meantime, here it is, David Strid out in the lead here, Milwaukee Mile. He's only got 8 more clicks to go. Looking on a little bit further back, it's Jason Lowe and David Worrell racing for third. Worrell pinches Lowe down to the low line. He's got to be careful. He doesn't want to come too far down. Lowe now switches it up to the high side. This is the battle here happening for third place. Worrell trying to hang on for dear life. He would love nothing more than to squeeze out a podium position today, but it's David Strid. 7 laps remaining. He's got a clear lead over Ryan Bowles. Bowles having to recover from that earlier incident in pit lane. Led a great majority of the laps here today. So for the last several laps, why don't we just listen to these beautiful Dallara IR-18 IndyCars head around this racetrack. So just 2 more clicks to go. 2 more times around this famed track for David Strid to cement this championship in his favor, and what a way to do so. We do have a crash, though. It's David Worrell. It's David Worrell, unfortunately, into the wall. And that will bring out the yellow flag, and that'll do it. Here, as 1 more lap to go, these cars will cool down. And that will be it for today's race, the Mental Health 190. Unfortunately, David Worrell bringing out that caution. We'll take a look here. This was just a moment ago, and looks like he was fighting there with Howard Livingston. And Howard, oh my goodness, just maybe not seeing enough space there to make that move. I don't know. Something MJ will have to look at. But unfortunately, taking Worrell out, and it looks like Howard Livingston also out of the car as well. So, my goodness me. Well, Difficult day after all for Howard Livingston, but the checkered flag belongs to David Strid, who acquitted himself quite well here. And I might also say, Ryan Bowles recovered very well from his earlier incident. Jason Lowe as well recovering from his incident. And, David Strid, we'll talk for just 1 second as this is the Mental Health 190. Strid doesn't come on and talk with us in post-race interviews. He's just a shy guy. And rather than force himself out there, force himself to be social and talk too much, he just chooses not to. And so that's kind of a form of having barriers and setting boundaries. And sometimes that's the appropriate thing. Sometimes you don't want to be publicly accessible, and that's okay too, no matter what feels healthy and right for you, as long as you're feeling well and as long as you don't feel harmed to do so. Hey, take your time. We'd love to have you on broadcast here and be able to interview you, especially after the championship is over, Mr. David Strid. But hey, you take your time, bud. Do you. And hey, he continues to do it here as he takes the checkered flag. And really, this is his season. It's become his season. He's fought hard. He's been in the points lead now for multiple races. And congratulations to David Strid, who takes victory here. We won't say that he's officially taking the championship yet, but it is certainly a done deal. So let's go ahead and get this final running order for you on the screen as Mr. David Strid celebrates his victory here at the virtual Milwaukee Mile Mental Health 190 on VirtualRacing.Network. There it is. David Strid taking your victory, and second place going to Ryan Bowles. Bowles, coming up 6 positions here today, and that's a pretty awesome feat for him. So back into his fast running ways of the past and getting a podium. Great for him. Hopefully he'll be here for us to have a chat with here post-race. Stay tuned for that post-race discussion in the Mental Health 190 victory lane. Jason Lowe taking third. It's not going to be enough to hold on to that championship or make a challenge for it. He did give it his all today, but he'll finish third. Everyone else finishing a lap down. Dominic Harte having a difficult day, sliding all the way back in the field, but still mentally staying tough, getting the top 5. David Worrell had a fantastic race going, and an unfortunate coming together with Howard Livingston. I think MJ will have his hands full trying to figure that one out today. Mike West in 6th, Dan Ensch in 7th. Look at them beautiful donuts as he continues to march his way down. He's going to run donuts all the way down that. Oh, and there he blows the engine so he can. Howard Livingston, and then MJ Ramirez finishing in 9th. 10th goes to Iñigo Mardones. Manuel Gomez Esteban in 11th. 12th to Christopher Bryan. Jimmy Drennan in 13th. Rick Kelbaugh, Mr. Stickwick there at 14th. Rick Lovison, tough day today for Rick. And Jasper Van Linden, unfortunately, they had an incident very early on in the first lap of the race, so they did not get to finish this one out. But we will now switch our attention over to our post-race interviews, and let's go ahead and see if we can grab any of our drivers. In fact, we do have, Jason Lowe joining us here in the Mental Health 190 post-race victory lane discussion. Hey, Jason, great to have you here. Fantastic race today. You look like you're up there in the mix, but no matter who was out there in front, you couldn't quite take the win. Tell us about your race, and congratulations on your 3rd place.
Under 1st and 2nd. My real problem today was I could not get going on new tires. I could not find a happy medium with the in-car adjustments. You still got me?
I got you. We were muted initially, but we very quickly fixed that.
All right, sorry about that. Again, congratulations to David Strid and Ryan on 1st and 2nd. My problem today was I could not get going on new tires. I could not find an in-car adjustment. Until I was about halfway through the fuel run, I just was not good. And then the car kind of came to life for me. I was pretty quick toward the end of the fuel run. I was making some time on some guys. I had an unfortunate, unforced error entering the pits. I lost it entering the pits and smacked the wall. And that cost me about 8 or 9 seconds, I guess. I was fortunate the cautions fell the way they did, or I would have been a lap down. So, I don't know. I thought this was kind of a tough race. Long, flat corners. It's just, I had difficulty getting a rhythm, especially on new tires. So it was just, I could watch the guys on new tires just make so much time on me, and I couldn't wrap my head around what I was doing wrong. So just fortunate to be on the podium. We're not done yet. We still got Indy. I'm mathematically alive in the championship. It's going to be tough, but anything's possible. So we're going to go to Indy with our elbows out and our eyes down and just see what we can do.
Well, there you go. That's a great attitude. And of course, we've talked with you so many times, and you say you're just out there to get that race win. You're not really thinking championship, but of course, next race, it's all going to be about that championship. And as you say, you know better than me what the point standings are and whether you have a mathematical chance. So, hey, if you got a chance, you got to go for it. If there's a gap, you got to go for it as a racer. But today being that mental health 190, talk about how difficult it was to just stay focused on a track like this. 190 laps is, I mean, Will Stearns was checking in and saying how sim racing can be exhausting. How do you feel after this race?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I have a setup that it very much mimics a real life cockpit as far as I have a racing seat. I have an 80-20 rig where the wheel's in the right place, the pedals are in the right place. I mean, the big difference is how not hot you are sim racing. I mean, you can have fans on you, you're not wearing a driver's suit, so you don't have and you're not fighting the G-forces. So, I mean, why we pride ourselves as sim racers, it's a lot easier doing this than it is in real life. And if you're too worn out after a sim race, you really need to look at your equipment and just how you may be reaching too far, you may have the wheel too close, but you should be able to run some pretty long sim races, and as long as you're not in an overly hot room, you should be okay at the end. I mean, some races are tougher than others. This one was mentally challenging, but not so much physically. Sure.
And of course, endurance racing, a big part of iRacing as well. And I've been part of a couple of teams that have done the 24-hour races, etc. Sometimes you settle in for those races and you're doing 2 to 4 hour stints in the car, or maybe even longer. I've seen some people do 12 hours and 12 hours with just one partner. So it can be exhausting, but as you said, there's a lot of good things that you can do as a sim racer with ergonomics, etc. And that, I mean, keys right into the topic of today's race with the mental health 190. Just to maintain that positive mental health, you know, sometimes it's the physical ailments that we need to kind of work around and understand that those things are stressing us out, and that's part of the problem. But still, you kept your head about you there. You had that incident in the pits, and you stuck it out and made it into third spot. So anybody that you want to thank before we move on?
Well, I'd like to thank David Strid for the wonderful setups he brings the league each and every week. He puts a lot of time in, and he's very appreciated for doing that. I'd like to thank MJ for being the league steward, and starting next season, he will be the league president. I am stepping down and just going to be one of the racers rather than the leader next season, and I have very high hopes that MJ is going to lead the league in a very positive direction, and Mike West will be the new steward taking over for MJ, and those are both just two quality individuals that I have the utmost confidence in, and I think MJ will do a better job than I ever did. So I'm looking forward to next season and seeing what we come up with.
Absolutely, but you'll still be racing with us in the next season, though, right?
Absolutely. I'm just taking the big hat off, and I'm just gonna have the regular old helmet on, and I'm really looking forward to that, to be honest.
Well, congratulations to you in your retirement from the leadership position, and I hope that the rest of your racing for this season is exciting and thrilling, but we look forward to having you on all the future races. Thanks, Jason, for everything that you've done with the International IndyCar League, US IndyCar League, and everything that we'll get to do in the future.
And thank you, Trevor, for the wonderful job you do at the Virtual Racing Network. And thanks to everybody who watches.
Absolutely. My pleasure. That's the great Jason Lowe joining us after coming in third here at the famed Milwaukee Mile racetrack, oldest operating racetrack in the world, motorsports racetrack in the world. Just him talking about how difficult it can be, but keeping his head on his shoulders and recovering from an incident today. And as I was talking about earlier, maybe, as you can see on screen, that pass from David straight underneath Jason Lowe. But yeah, actually choosing to step aside because he understands that's the best thing for the health and well-being of the league and his friends and family that he's made here in the league. So now that'll give us a chance to pass over the conversation to our second place finisher, Ryan Bowles, who did an amazing job here today. He was leading the race through most of the initial going, but then had that similar incident as Jason Lowe, and that just cost him just enough that he ended up in second place. Hey, Ryan, welcome back to the broadcast and the post-race here, VirtualRacing.Network, and congratulations on finishing second.
Thanks, Trevor.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So talk us through your day today. You're out there in front. You looked awesome. You were walking away with this thing, and then disaster struck on pit lane. But talk us through how it was. You gained a whole bunch of spots. You were running at the front today.
Yeah, it was funny because this is one of my better tracks, but in practice, I didn't get the setup. I think I crashed 15 times off of turn 2. But then when I got in the race, once you got past about 5 laps, it was kind of exactly the setup I wanted it to be, where you could accelerate off 2 and 4 without a problem.
Nice.
And once I figured that out, I was able to gain on, like, it was Jason and who was on the pole? Dan. And so yeah, then it was pretty standard after that. I was scared of pitting, of course, but my first 2 pits, my first pit was kind of slow, and then my second pit was really, really fast, which gave me the confidence of coming into the pits a little faster on the last pit stop. And I came in at about 80 mile an hour, and I had to slam on the brakes, which spun my car.
Spun you around, and then you got it righted again. But despite being able to get those yellow flags that reset everything, you just could not quite find a way to get around David on those starts. And Jason was talking about kind of the same thing. He just couldn't really get the starts down. It seemed like the car seemed to come to him during the race. It seemed to feel better through the race. How was the car feeling to you? And did you feel like you just couldn't quite get to David and make a pass?
Yeah, by the end of the race, we were all kind of the same speed. We'd all kind of figured it out. But you're right, on the restarts, I was great on the first lap, and then the second lap, I was really tight in 1 and 2. So I'm taking higher arcs, feathering the throttle. But once you kind of got your mind right and got your rhythm, you were fine after that. But again, at that point, David was just as fast as I was, so I was not going to catch him.
Yes, it's as soon as you see David up there in the lead, it's sort of like if you're holding pace with him, it's kind of a thing where you might have to mentally resign yourself to second place because David certainly knows what he's doing up there in the lead. But still, great chance to return back up here into the podium. You know, we talk about it every week, Ryan. You're so fast. You're always up there in the front. Seems like a little silly thing that catches you out or you get caught in somebody else's incident. But it must feel really good to get a podium here. And then tell us what you're thinking about next race, final race of the season, Care Camps 250. Thoughts on Indy?
I'm looking forward to it. I love Indy, and yeah, last race of the season. I hope I've made that 3 in a row now, so I'll have 4 in a row.
Well, 4 in a row sounds pretty darn good. Like I said, you're running up at the front each and every race, and why not? Maybe it's your shot for win. Take the final one of the season, go out with a bang. How does that sound?
I would like to get a win by the end of the season, so I'll try real hard next week.
Well, that'll be it. Of course, we invite everybody to join us next week. But hey, Ryan, anybody that you want to thank before we move on?
I want to thank Mike. I want to thank David. I want to thank Jason. I want to thank Graham He's in my ear all the time. So it's a lot of fun. I want to thank my wife for letting me do this. So,
of course, got to thank the wife. Got to thank everybody who allows you to sit in that cockpit. Happy wife, happy life. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Ryan taking second place here. We'll see you next week at Indy, bud. Good luck.
Thanks, Trevor.
So that's Ryan Bowles. He's got the good family life going, and he's got the good racing life going here on the iRacing service. There you see on your screen, Season 16 rapidly coming to a close. The very final race next week, same time, same channel, right here on VirtualRacing.Network. Be so great to have you join us here, so mark it on your calendars, or better yet, just subscribe to the channel. Hit that big notification bell, and you'll make sure that you get the notification of next week's race delivered right to your inbox, delivered as soon as you go into your web browser, on your phone. We will send people to your house to let you know that it's time to win. No, we won't do that part, but everything else, I promise we will do. And you won't want to miss it. Indy is always a great race. I mean, one of my favorites was just a couple of seasons ago. We saw Dominic Harte make a debut here on VirtualRacing.Network and actually take victory there. And we just, it's one of those things that anything can happen at Indy. It's going to be a great race. So same time, same channel, 10 o'clock Eastern time. I'm Trevor Greenfield. On behalf of all of the racers here in the International IndyCar League, and the administration staff, you heard it now, MJ Ramirez, the president. Make sure if you're interested in racing, you click down in that link down below. It's time for the next season to start up, season 17. You won't want to miss it. Click that link down below, and you can be part of the team and get out there and race with the rest of the group. So there's that. If you have any sponsorship inquiries, make sure to send them down below as well. There's a link to click on an email to either send that to myself or send it to the International IndyCar League, and we'll get working with you and make sure we get your logo and all of your presence up there on the screen. And since this was my race, the Mental Health 190, if you're interested in working with me, you want to know some of what I can help you with, and maybe we can work on together to get your health overall holistically back up to where you want it to be, hey, feel free to contact me after the race. I'm always open to working with people, and I'm just opening my own practice. So would love to talk with you. Again, Trevor Greenfield, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. On behalf of everybody, take it easy, chill out a little bit, and self-care, self-love, that's where it's at, my friends. Enjoy. We'll see you next week from Indy. Bye-bye.